Hi everyone, welcome to your how-to for Wreaths by Olive. Hopefully all of you should have received your garden wreath making kits, as this one is here. And what I'm going to do is just take you through exactly the step-by-step guide as to how you're going to make your wreath at home. You should have everything you need, but just stick with me and hopefully we'll have a beautiful wreath at the end. So within your box you should have 2 copper rings, some wire, you should have, or 2 trans wire, you should have some floral wire, which we won't use to the end, but stick with me, a bag or 2 bags of sphagnum moss. It might be quite wet, which is probably why it's got a bit of condensation, but that's completely fine, and a selection of different ribbons. So that's what you'll have in your box. What you will need to make sure you've done is get your own pair of scissors, or some secateurs are really useful, a glass of wine if you're over the age of 18, and also some gloves are really super helpful. Lastly, you need to make sure that you've cut your foliage and your flowers, so we won't need that for a little bit yet, but and I'll take you through exactly kind of how you do that and what you're looking for when you do that. So yeah, the first step is you're going to bind your moss to your base, and that is what's going to create kind of that really moisture filled hydration for all of the foliage that you're going to lay on top of it, which will make it last a lot longer. So there are lots of different bases that you can use, so I don't know if you've probably seen kind of wicker ones that you can use, and some people just don't bother to put moss on, but I quite like this kind of method of the moss binding just because it maintains the foliage for a lot longer, and actually you can, you know, I mean we had Christmas wreaths that lasted till February last year, so yeah, really good stuff. You can also rehydrate it, which is really good, so it's that constant source of moisture. So what you're going to do is make sure you've got your wire, and you are going to wrap your wire 3 times around the inner circle of your coil. It won't take much to hold it in place. It's very strong, the stuff, so you'll be able to hold it like this. And the top tip is to make sure that you keep the wire to your body, just because it will stop you from getting confused as we keep going. What you want to do after you've got those couple of 3 ways round is you're going to wrap around both rings 3 times, so that you have something that looks a bit like a W or an M, depending on which way you're looking at it. So we're going to go for that. At this point we're ready to put some moss on. So you might notice that it's quite wet, but that's okay, it's all good. It's quite beautiful stuff that comes from Scotland, this stuff. I think you can also get it from Wales. It can be any colour from brown to red to green, so don't quite worry about that. Sometimes you might get a couple of creep crawlies, but bear with it. So what you want to do is create a cocktail sausage shaped and sized piece of moss. So put it in your hand and just roll it to make sure it's really compact. Once you've got your first sausage, you're going to layer it over your ladder that you've just created, and you're going to wrap round twice, just to really keep it in place. So I'm going to do a couple more times round, and what I'm doing is creating another W around. Then I'm going to roll some more moss, stick it over the top again, and we will end up with an entire ring covered in moss. So by the end you'll have a bit of a Blue Peter kind of, this is what it's meant to look like. So as you can see, it's quite full. You can't really see any gaps, so the aim of the game is just not to be able to see through it. So it doesn't matter whether it's a bit skinny in areas or a bit fat in areas, as long as you can't see through. If you're feeling it's a bit messy, you can give it a bit of a trim your bush and all that. So now you're ready for the second step, which is lying over the foliage, which is the nicest part, I think. So what I'm going to do is just tidy up a little bit here, and then I'm going to come and make a couple of piles of foliage just to show you what I've got, and then show you how to layer it on. Two, we're going to layer some foliage over your moss base which you've just created. So as you can see across the table, a bit hectic, but I sort of love it like that. I've got a selection or a pile of different types of foliage. So my recommendation would be just to go for a forage in your local woods, or go to your garden, or whatever you've got, because actually, you know, Lots of different types of flowers and grasses and leaves can be used, but I think the most or the easiest to use are kind of smaller leaved products, just because they help with the overall look and effect and don't kind of clog up too much. So the aim of the game is to create something called a patch. So a patch essentially is a selection of foliage that looks good as one. So this is what I call a patch. The smaller the patch, the smaller your overall wreath will be. So if you're looking for something huge, make sure that you've got kind of bigger, chunkier patches as we lay down. But essentially the idea is that we create a patch of different types of foliage, something that's quite nice together. We're going to bind it to the moss, making sure that all of the stems are in the moss or connected to the moss so that it's allowed to absorb all that moisture. So now we've got a second patch. What you're going to do is you're going to always keep the wire to your body and you're going to rotate the wreath clockwise. And you are going to insert your second bunch of foliage over the second and about 2 inches down. And then you're going to again wrap your wire around 2 or 3 times, just pulling really hard, making sure it's really secure. And that's your second patch. So it's a bit of a mess, the table's a bit crazy, but I've managed to get around with my last patch. So this is kind of where we're at, still a work in progress, but getting there. Need to line it up a little bit more. But as you can see at the top, I've still got a bit of a gap, and that's because I need to put my last patch in. And how you do that is make sure you tuck it underneath the first one. So obviously you can see here there's a bit of a hole. So what I'm going to do is make sure it's really tucked in underneath there. And I'm going to wrap, a bit tricky, but I'm going to wrap my wire around super tight so that it's really tucked in there. So I'm just going to tie my wire off. So you're going to roll it round 2 or 3 times, pull really hard, chop it off and feed the end of the wire into the back of the moss, just so you really don't hurt your fingers. So I'm just going to tuck it back into the moss, make sure it's really in there. Not so bad. I'm not sure which way it's going to go around yet, so I'm going to have a play with it, have a look at it. And then we'll come back for the last step, which is putting in the flowers. So step 3 is the fun bit, the really fun bit, so it's decorating. So again, you can pretty much use anything. So I've got a couple of examples here of kind of different things that you can put on. But the key element now, once you've had a look at your wreath, you've trimmed it down, you're happy with the base, you need your floral wire, which I've given you 10 pieces, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim my flower down. You're going to use one of your wires and you're going to pierce the wire through the flower. And it's going to come out the other side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold this piece of wire in half and you're going to twist. So you've essentially got a flower on a stick. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a bit of a gap where you found or wherever you want to have your flower arrangement, and you're just going to push that wire right into the base, into the moss base of your wreath. Far enough so it comes out the other side. This is the really fiddly bit, but once you get the hang of it, it's quite easy. I'm just going to make sure that we re-pierce the wire through the base of the wreath so that you don't hurt your fingers because it's quite sharp. And there we go, I've got one flower in. One thing you can do with this wire is create a really nice bow. So I've given you a kind of selection of ribbons that you can have a look at depending on how you feel, depending on what colours you've used. For me, I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use this navy blue colour, primarily because it goes in front of our door. But if you want to create a ribbon, you can do that by creating it on top of one of the wires, tying a knot and creating it, folding it in half, and again pushing it straight through again. The other thing you can do with ribbon is create something to hang on the door. So once you've decided which side up your wreath goes, what you're going to do with some of the ribbon is you're going to thread it through your outer ring. To create a way to hold this up against the door. So hopefully you've all got a knocker. If not, actually Wilko's do these amazing kind of stick on the door hooks. They're kind of 6 for like £1.99. We've used them a lot because we don't have any nails in our door. But essentially that's how you hold it up, and really, you know, you can use any colour really, depending on what you can see, I guess, and what goes with your look and feel. But yeah, so I'm going to put a couple more flowers in, I'm going to do a bow, and then I'll show you what mine looks like at the end. If you have any questions, you've all got my mobile numbers, please give me a FaceTime if you're stuck. I would love to see a photo of what all of your wreaths look like at the end. Really, really interesting to see how different they can look considering they started from the same base. So yeah, I'm Laura, thank you so much. This has been kind of Wreaths by Olive, taking through a bit of a tutorial of how to make your wreath. See you soon, bye!